Do you want me to redo that? Well, I don't even know how to chop an onion. I'm sure somebody's gonna be like, that's not how you chop an onion. I don't care. You know? Is it tomatillo? Tomatillo? Should I say that all over again then? Now we're going to make success Swedish meatballs. Swedish meatballs don't have anything to do with Irish culture. We're just mixing it up a little bit. And by adding some different approaches to different types of recipes, I think adds to the eclecticness that is just naturally who I am and how I approach my spiritual practice anyways. Part of Kitchen Witchery is all about manually working with the ingredients, starting from scratch. Otherwise, you could, just buy meatballs and make the sauce and put it together. But, this way, all of your ingredients have been handled by you, have been mixed and manipulated. The ingredients that you're going to need are here on the table. I'm going to talk a little bit about them, but they'll also be in the description below for you to review. The main event of this recipe is going to be parsley. We're going to use it in a fresh form as well as in a dry herb form. This was another one of the herbs that was included in the Magical Pantry box for March with the focus of luck. Now, the reason why we're using parsley, not only is it green and it talks about it brings in wealth, prosperity, luck, and abundance, but it also is a protective herb. Anything that we're working on with success, we want to make sure that we're protecting the work that we're doing. We're keeping away distractions and interferences that can prevent us from having a successful outcome. We're also including other items like garlic, which is a protective vegetable and herb and ingredient as well, and onions. So all of those add to putting the components together and bringing all the success and protection that's needed for you to have the outcome that you're looking for. You can use things like garlic powder or onion powder instead of the actual herb if you don't want a chunkier meatball recipe. We are also making this as a vegetarian option. So I'm going to be using a meat substitute in my recipe. If you decide you want to make this with real ground beef, you may want to reduce the number of eggs that you include in it down to 1. I'm using 2 eggs in my recipe because it helps to hold the product together, or the meat, because there's no real animal fats in plant-based meat substitutes. I'm also using real cream and real milk. These can be easily substituted out as well if you don't want to use dairy in your recipe. It is okay to wear gloves because it is not necessary for you to make contact with the ingredients in order for your magic to work. It's all about the intention. And your hands are one of the tools that you have as a magical practitioner. What really makes this a magical infusion is the fact that you have to get your hands into those ingredients in order to mix them all together. And anytime you're using manual work in your practice, that gives you a chance to focus on what you're trying to draw in your intention. Success doesn't necessarily mean prosperity. It doesn't necessarily mean money. It could mean that you want the completion of a project, or perhaps you are looking for acknowledgement or recognition at work. Success can be defined by a lot of different things, by a lot of different people. So as you're making your meatballs, that is where you want to focus your attention and your intentions on what you want to pack into each one of those balls. Now, whenever I'm using eggs in a recipe, I do keep the eggshells because I make the cascarilla or cascara, which is an eggshell powder for the store. In a future video, I'll show you how I do that and then also what cascarilla can be used for. Okay, now I'm going to actually start doing the manipulation of my ingredients and mixing them all together with intention. When I made this recipe with my kids, I really was focusing on success for them in school. I really wanted to focus on being able to pay attention, follow through with homework, because those are all the things that are going to be successful. This time around, since I'm making this for my production crew, I'm going to put in the intention of success for our videos and our success for all of the content that we want to produce over the next year, and building our online and virtual community of knowledge and bringing more wisdom to the community. So that is what I'm manipulating into these success Swedish meatballs. All of that love to that mixture. Now, a little note on Kitchen Witchery. Kitchen Witchery isn't always about, you know, some of the positive things that you can mix in there. So it's really important that you're in the right mindset for when you're doing the work, and that you're focused on your intention, because if you're thinking negatively, guess what? You're putting negativity into your food. Okay, now we're ready to make the balls. So you want them to be nicely firmly packed. They don't crumble and fall apart in the oven. You don't necessarily want them to be too big either, because then they cook all the way through. My batter's probably a lot more waterier than yours would be if you're using real meat products. This is mostly because of the eggs. Now they're ready to go into the oven. We've preheated the oven to 400 degrees, and they will cook for about 20 minutes. Meantime, we'll make our sauce. Now we're going to mix all of our liquid bases and then add in vegetables right before it goes into the oven. I'm going to be adding both dry parsley and also fresh chopped parsley to the sauce, just to give it a little bit of a textural difference. You can either just dice up the parsley, or if you've got a herb scissors, those are cool too. I'm just giving it a coarse cut. Now the nutmeg is not overpowering in this recipe. It kind of gives you almost like a little bit of that sweetness undertone. If you've ever had Swedish meatballs, they're a little bit sweet. We're using garlic for protection as well. I always like using fresh garlic, but if you don't have access to fresh garlic, or you have somebody who doesn't like the texture of it, you can always use dry garlic. From here, I'm going to be mixing my ingredients in a clockwise motion, which you may have heard referred to as jostle or deasil, which comes from the Gaelic word south, which is joss. The reason why we're doing it in a clockwise motion is because this is a drawing and infusing and bringing everything together. If you go in a counterclockwise, that's when you're undoing it. So we're starting in the south, we're mixing it in, and we're going to maintain our motion going in a clockwise direction. We're thinking about all the things that we want to infuse intention into our sauce as we're combining all of the ingredients, bringing in protection, bringing in success, bringing in collaboration and teamwork for everything that we want to achieve, because I'm serving this up to my production team. There we go. It's well combined now. I want to show off these mushrooms. I got these at a local grocery store that had this beautiful blend of different types of mushrooms. I thought they were very texturally beautiful, but also mushrooms have a lot of healthy properties. They are detoxifying herbs in your body and your system, so they have a lot of really great health benefits. Adding mushrooms to your ingredients will help to add and infuse that wellness aspect. You know, in ancient times, before we got into modern medicine, the philosophy was let food be thy medicine. And so there's a lot of home remedies and a whole lot of wellness techniques that have been lost to us as far as letting food be the source of our wellness and our well-being. Now, with that being said, I still encourage you to seek out your doctor, before you start any home remedy regimens, using fresh ingredients helps to infuse that idea of wellness and well-being. I also decided to use a green onion just for a little bit of color since we are in the month of the Irish. This allows for just a little bit more texture to the recipe, a little bit more color to the recipe. I'm also going to be plating it up with some greens as well. I'm actually not going to use a lot of the onion part of this. I'm using mostly the stalk or the chives of this. And this will go in with our meatballs when they are done cooking for the first 20 minutes. Now that our meatballs are done, we're going to transfer them into a crockery in order to bake it all together a second time. So after the first 20 minutes, if you're using real meat, you might have a lot of oils or fat and grease at the bottom of the pan. I suggest that you remove the meatballs and put them on like a paper towel just to kind of drain them a little bit. We don't get as much of that with the plant-based meat, so I'm going to be able to just transfer over into my pot, add my vegetables on top of it, and then pour my sauce over all of it. So this will go back in the oven for another 25 minutes. We're going to cover it with a lid or aluminum foil, but all of that's going to help keep it in the pot and simmering and bringing all of those pieces together, all that infusion together. So while that is cooking, now we're going to actually cook the noodles because that'll take about 20 minutes for them to cook up, and then we'll get the greens ready for it to be plated after they come out of the oven. For presentation, I wanted to add a little bit more green to this plate, and so we're going to be plating it up with some spinach. I'm also going to garnish it with some fresh parsley as well, because parsley is the main event here. And then some micro mixed greens. I found these in the grocery store. They look like little shamrocks. I thought it was such a neat little addition to this presentation of the meal. And then I am going to dress it in a homemade dressing. Now, the thing I wanted to point out about this dressing, first and foremost, what is all this chunky stuff inside of this jar? I got a batch of tomatillos, which are green tomatoes. If you've never had a tomatillo before, they are a little bit citrusy, tart. They're not sweet like normal tomatoes. I wanted to add this to the salad, and cutting these up and putting them directly on the salad is not actually very appetizing. It's got a little bit of a tartness or bitterness to it. And so I cut up the tomatillo and I added olive oil, salt, pepper, garlic, a little bit of red chili flakes, and lemon juice to infuse them overnight, and that will soften up those tomatillos just in time for the salad. I also had some lemons that are like on the edge of being overly ripe. So I decided I was going to go ahead and utilize all of my supplies, all of my foods in the seasonal way that they are in, which is what Kitchen Witchery is also about, is being in season and using whole elements in your cooking. If you wanted a creamier dressing, you can add a fresh avocado and blend up your dressing, and that will give you more of kind of like a green goddess, like creamier salad dressing. But we're going to keep ours simple for today because my avocado is really not squishy enough for that. And we're just going to go with the tangy base dressing as is. Instead of using vinegar in my dressing, because vinegar is something that we use when we're trying to sour something up. We use them in sour jars, we use them in banishing spells and things to remove people. I wanted the tanginess without using the vinegar, and that's the reason why I'm using the lemons. Because when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade or you make lemon salad dressing. Our noodles are done. I'm going to add some herb butter to it. When I was living in Germany, we used to call this Krauter butter. It's a butter that has garlic and other herbs already added into it. You can use plain butter, but I just think that this is extra flavor, extra yummy. So I'm going to fold that into my noodles. I'm going to add a little bit of salt for taste and pepper. And I'm gonna go ahead and plate up noodles and get ready for our meatballs. Okay, let's see how good this looks. Mmm. Remember, we're serving up success. So even as you're plating this, for whoever you're going to serve it up to, everything that you've worked for and everything that you want for them and their success, you want to make sure that you're adding that intention as you're completing your work here, or like your spell work here. Yeah. With that, my friends, we have success Swedish meatballs with a side of greens to promote success and bring luck. Now, you may have noticed that we did not mention anything about St. Patrick's in this entire video, and if you would like to know why, then be sure to follow us on social media where we post weekly wisdom and insight on such topics. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. In the comments, let us know what other topics you would like for us to explore. And with that, merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again. Oh, I'm not whipping cream by hand. Girl, please. Tomatillos, tomatillo, tomatillo, tomatillo. Tomatillo, tomatillo. Green tomato. Widdershins. I always pucker it up. Okay, I'm pausing because I want to make sure I get the word right. Jostle. Deosil. Jostle. Not recording. I'm just testing it on you. See. Jostle. Jostle or deosil or deosil. So from here, I'm going to be mixing my ingredients, and I'm going to be using a docile or deosil. Jostle. Jostle or deosil. Okay. I said